Welcome back to Global News Morning. A pleasure to have you join us. It's that time of week we check in with our good friend Matt Lee to talk about real estate, various issues, and we're talking about country living. Matt, good morning.
Yes. Good morning. How are you?
Very well. A lot
Good.
of people maybe looking outside the city core to find
Yeah.
property.
Yeah. I think that what I want to do is talk about like the listing, what to do when listing the country property and keeping the momentum going. I'm not saying that the market is shrinking by any means, but what I've seen in the last little while, it is summer. We do have holidays in there. Something that I was seeing, potentially 40, 50 showings on a property, on one property, and if I said that it was like a 25 to 30 showings, like if I was using maybe, that might be what I'm seeing right now. It might not be on every property, but that's just something that I'm noticing. So if I'm noticing that, I want to keep my clients or my people kind of ahead of the curve. And how do we do that? And that's what I figured we would talk about today.
Okay, and so basically, if it is a busy seller's market in the city, there are properties outside of the core.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we're dealing with country properties and we're dealing with something on a well and a septic, then, for a long time, what we would do is we would have, you know, an offer come in conditional upon maybe a buyer doing a well test or the seller pumping the septic or something along that lines. What I would say right now is to keep that momentum going and to have everything kind of taken care of, either have the documents that you had when you bought the property or when the well was drilled or those documents, or have something done now. Because what we can do is you can have the well test come in and do it in advance. Somebody looking at a country property, the structure, of course, is going to matter. But if you don't have water, that is a big deal. That is the biggest deal in my mind about dealing with country properties. So if you can provide to a buyer a document that says this professional pumps company or anybody else has been in and tested the water and we have X amount of gallons per minute, you know, this is what they've come out with. There's always going to be hard water in Kingston. We live on limestone. There's no question. I mean, we don't have iron, we don't have salt, we don't have sulfur. We go through all of these things and you can provide a document that was done recently, then that makes them feel really good. You want to make sure that it's something that is taken care of. And then the other thing is septics. And when we get into septics, I think that, if you were to have to replace a full septic system, ballpark it's somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000. So they are a big deal, and I think that having a septic pumped prior to the listing is something that I would look at as well. I would say, okay, now I have a receipt for pumping the septic, and I have a receipt for doing the gallons per minute. It's probably going to cost you about $500, to do these two things. But I think in my mind, it makes more money down the road. And I think that this is something that if you are taking care of the property at that extent, then the buyer's going to come in and go, look, they've got everything ready for us.
Nothing to
And
hide.
these are
Yep.
professional people, nothing to hide. Take care of it. Oil tanks are a big thing nowadays, so I think that you're getting down on insurance companies that are wanting to deal with them, but that is something you have to talk about your own provider about. If there's an oil tank on the property, make sure that the company is going to cover it. And the other thing is make sure that it's within the age, because now they're double walled, they're fiberglass. It's totally different. I've been doing this 20 years, and they used to say, well, we want them, 20 years old, and some companies are saying 10, some are saying 15. So you got to ask, if there's an oil tank on the property.
A lot of country properties have wood stoves.
Yeah. So wood stoves, pellet stoves, backup heat. I think that when we're looking at this, this is, I would say, less important about the sale of the property. It is very important to a buyer before using something like that. When you talk to an insurance company, if you don't have a wet certification on something that burns wood or pellets, you're not going to get that thing insured. It might have to be disconnected. It might have to be removed, or you get that certification. If you're going to do everything you possibly can to make the sale easy, then you can add that to the list. But that is not as essential as the water and sewer. So like well and septic. So those are the main key things, I think, when living in a country property, keeping that momentum going. I would have those things taken care of.
Okay, all very important advice to consider before heading out to the country. Matt Lee, thank you so much.
That's right. All right, take care.
Real estate tips brought to you by Matt Lee of Royal LePage.